My husband bragged to his entire family about being an equal parent, so I gave him 6 weeks to prove it. At a family dinner last month, my husband was bragging about how we split parenting duties 50-50 and how he wasn't like other dads who can't handle their own kids. I sat there biting my tongue because this man barely gets off the couch to feed our dog. Right in the middle of his speech, I got an email saying I got a call back for a local theater production. And when I interrupted to share the news, he said, "You're really gonna do the whole drama mom thing?" His mom jumped in and said, "Oh, you'll be fine. You're such a hands-on dad." And they kept praising him until he shrugged and said, "Fine, I guess I'll survive." Week 1, he called me during rehearsal in a panic because he couldn't find the kids' clothes. I said, "The clothes are in the dressers where they've always been." The next night, he tried to start a fight about how I needed to leave better instructions, but I just grabbed my keys and walked out without responding. Week 2, my daughter came home from a birthday party in tears because she was the only kid who showed up without a gift, and when I confronted my husband, he shrugged and said, "I didn't know birthday parties required presents." That night, I found out he'd called his mother to complain about how I was abandoning the family for a silly hobby. She called me the next morning with this gentle voice and said, "Sweetheart, I know you're excited about your little play, but maybe you're taking on too much right now." His sister texted me and said, "I know you're busy with your play, but you really need to write things down for him because he's trying so hard and it's not fair to set him up to fail." I knew anything I said would just make me look like the problem because he'd already turned his whole family against me. Week 3, I got a call from the school office and the secretary's voice was ice cold. She said my son had been sitting in the pickup line for over an hour and they couldn't reach my husband no matter how many times they called. They'd had to pull the emergency contact from his file and call my neighbor to come get him. She said, "Mrs. Miller, I need you to understand that if this happens again, we're required to file a report with the district." I left rehearsal shaking and picked up my son from my neighbor's house. When I got home, my husband was on the couch watching TV like nothing had happened. I said, "The school almost filed a report on us." He muted the TV and looked at me and said, "I already called my mom and told her what happened, and she agrees that if you keep putting your little hobby ahead of your children and we end up getting a visit from CPS, that's on you." He turned the TV back on. The week before opening night, he sat me down and said, "This play is tearing our family apart and I think you need to drop out." I said, "Absolutely not." He said, "The kids are struggling, I'm exhausted, and you're off playing make-believe 3 nights a week like you don't have responsibilities." I said, "You told everyone you were an equal parent, so be one." His face went red and he said, "Fine, but don't expect any support from me. And when this family falls apart, it's on you." The night before opening night, he looked at me and said, "I really hope this is worth destroying everything we built." Opening night, I was backstage with my heart slamming against my ribs because this was my first real performance in 15 years. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "Kids are starving. When are you coming home?" I stared at it for 1 second. Then I silenced my phone and shoved it in my bag and walked onto that stage. After the show, I drove home still glowing and walked through the front door expecting silence or maybe a mess I'd have to clean up. Instead, I found my mother-in-law sitting at the kitchen table with both kids eating grilled cheese sandwiches. My stomach dropped because I assumed she was there to lecture me about being a neglectful wife, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring at my husband, who was standing in the corner of the kitchen like a kid who'd been caught doing something terrible. She stood up and walked toward him and said, "You called me
To continue, tap the arrow in the bottom right corner and copy the link, then tap the CapCut icon in the bottom left. Finally, click the red button.
When I pulled out the tampon in front of her, she actually gagged. "We need to admit you," she said, covering her mouth. "Hospital day 1, IV